Hello and happy Friday. I'm Kendra Losee, and we are here with the first Friday edition for March. Welcome. And our guest today is Lilli Keinaenen. Did I get that right this time?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like the
pretty close.
fifth time, this maybe close to the charm. I didn't ask you five times before we went live.
Hmm.
And so Lily's joining us here for this first Friday Ask Me Anything. And we're going to be talking about sustainability, company values, what's happening this weekend, what's been happening this week, and just relax and finish up Friday, kick off the weekend. If you really need some inspiration, I've got like four different types of decks of cards if you want to grab a card. You never know what you need on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
Although last time I picked up the card, one said patience and the other said go outside. And I was like, okay. You could take both of those because I just got back from a walk. So happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah, I think this is definitely my highlight of the day because earlier today I went and got a COVID nasal swab done.
Oh, well, that's fun. Are you
So
worried you're
that's
sick?
fun. Yeah, I figured it's one of those things that you want to experience at least once.
Oh, I haven't tried it. I have my vaccine first shot though, so I feel like I'm
Yeah,
okay.
you win. You win. That's way more fun.
I don't know. I had to work really hard for it. I think I was talking last time about the volunteer hours that it took. It was 3 days, 5 to 6 hours a day. The first one was 86 degrees outside, and we were wearing long sleeve. I was wearing long sleeve, long pants, and helping old people.
Hmm.
But it's nice to see the joy in their eyes when they're the relief.
Yeah,
But
and
I
you
feel
got a
like,
vaccine out of it, so I
and
think that's a fair trade.
I got a vaccine out of it. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself while we're here getting
Sure.
started?
So, Changemaker Creative is a sustainable packaging and branding design agency for cannabis and hemp product brands. I do also work a little bit on sustainable consumer products outside cannabis, but really the cannabis and hemp is where I'm most excited to work with.
Is where it's at.
Hmm.
So, what drew you to sustainability, and why should companies add that layer?
Yeah, it's been something I've always been interested in. My background before cannabis was in sustainable environmental and social justice nonprofits, is what I was doing before, graphic design for them. So, I'm really just translating what I was doing there and stuff that I'm interested as a human, climate change, the environment,
Human things,
human things.
good human
So
things.
I'm making that part of my spiel because a lot of my clients are also interested in these things. So kind of finding your niche within a niche within a niche. So it's cannabis is a niche, working mostly with smaller women-owned companies is a niche, and then sustainability is the third niching down.
I love it.
And it is I love looking for sustainable stuff. So now, me being kind of the sustainability expert, taking on that mantle gives me the excuse to spend so much time just reading whatever new algae, plastics, and straw paper people come up with.
I love that. I love the plastics. I
Yeah.
also love the recycled plastics from the ocean. I'm a sucker for those products.
Oh, for sure.
Um, did I ever tell you, since we're casually, and this isn't actually me trying to interview you like it normally is, did I ever tell you the time that I saw Al Gore give his global warming speech
Oh,
presentation before the
wow.
movie came out?
You saw the original shitty PowerPoint.
It actually wasn't shitty, but yeah, I saw that.
Nice.
Yeah, I was working at a university, and the chancellor had not been able to go to this like fancy schmancy Michael Milton event and the Beverly Hills Hotel. And so somehow the president of the university grabbed me.
Nice.
And so I went to it, and it was filled with really interesting people. Colin, not Colin Powell, um, Wesley, whatever his name is, who was big in the Bush era. My memory's just going because it's the Al Gore part. So, long story short, It was pretty much, it was at the Beverly Hills Hotel, very much filled with very wealthy, prominent people. The majority of them were
Hmm.
conservative. And so when Al Gore was announced that he was going to speak, the entire table of people I was sitting at were grumbling. They were like, what's he gonna talk about? Seriously? Do we have to listen to this guy? And he gave his PowerPoint presentation with the videos embedded and stuff.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, the entire room gave him a standing ovation. He went
Wow.
from like people openly and loudly complaining about him to a standing ovation, just from the power of that presentation.
Yeah, and these were probably like oil industry conservative.
Kind of. They
Yeah,
were from all industries. This event was like the most random. It basically the
yeah,
requirement was you had to have money
right.
in order to be
That's
there.
super exciting. Yeah, I've only
Um,
seen a video of him doing that talk, and even that was super powerful. It is, I think it's still on like TED Talk.
I think so. I've seen him speak 3 different times randomly,
Mhm.
um, always on purpose, but like random opportunities. And I've met him once, but that speech was by far the most powerful and the most like he's pulled all this information into one place.
Hmm. You
And
should
what
check
can we
out.
do about it?
There's one event that actually is one of my clients. It's called the Brower Youth Awards.
Hmm.
So it's named after David Brower, the famous environmentalist, and they give awards to people under 20 who are doing huge things for the environment. And these kids are so freaking inspiring because they're basically like one of them like started a whole new like Superfund cleanup site in her neighborhood by doing like citizen science of like toxic waste and like doing the science and lobbying her local government and the federal government and just made it happen. And like
Wow.
people starting like whole like nature reserves and like, and these people are like usually like 15 to 20 years old. They're amazing.
Oh, I am gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it's
Um,
virtual this year, so I'll send you a tick a link.
yeah, I would like to at least look into it. It's just so fascinating to me how people can find those innovation and those ideas
Hmm.
that's and what sparks them, right? Like what sparks that idea that you can turn into something. Like how do you
Yeah.
recognize the spark, but how do you know to take that spark and actually do something with it, right? Like I think we all get those tickles of
Hmm.
inspiration.
Yeah, that was my motivation. I was like, well, somebody should do something to help the cannabis industry waste problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, why couldn't it be me? It can't be me. Somebody has to. It could be me. I'll just do it. I'll
It
be
is
the
you.
person who does it.
It is you. That's fantastic. Those of you who are watching, if you have any questions for Lilli or you just want to say hi, be sure and drop your comments in. We're paying attention and watching, keeping an eye on you guys. So, in the meantime, I'm just going to ask Lilli questions that I don't normally ask her.
Nice.
So, would you say, and this is a totally random question, and how long have you lived in the US?
Since 2007.
Okay. And just for the people who might not know, where are you from originally?
I am originally from Tampere, Finland, which is the second largest city in Finland in the middle. It's a beautiful place in between two lakes. Yes, my name has one of those umlaut characters in it. This is the easy Americanized version, how it's spelled here.
Thank you. Thank you. I happen to know that my last name was changed when whatever grandparent, great great
Mm.
got here. I don't know what it was originally, but I know it was chopped up. But so thank you for those of us who are incompetent. But so what about okay, so you moved here in 2007. You've been here a long time in California the whole time?
Yeah,
And you what brought you into the cannabis industry?
that was kind of a happy accident. Like my whole career has really been a series of happy accidents. So
Mhm.
I was kind of bored with the job that I had back home. And my husband asked me, well, boyfriend at the time, we had been dating for 6 months. And he asked, hey, do you want to move to the US with me? I'm like, sure. we'll need to get married. Sure, let's do it. Yeah, we had started dating in December, got married in July, moved to the US in September.
Oh my gosh. That's pretty
And
amazing.
so I quit my job and then landed here. I'm like, okay, what now? So I did some volunteer jobs, and then all of those people wanted to start to pay me. So that's how I ended up in the nonprofit side, is literally just through a couple of volunteer gigs. So that was business number one. Business number two was a friend of mine had gone to a cannabis trade show. I think it was like the first New West Summit in
Okay.
Oakland, I think it was in San Francisco at the time. Um, and she called me the next morning, like, hey, we should start an agency for cannabis. And at the time, I was kind of getting tired of the nonprofit thing because they're all on the same fundraising schedule. So I was getting really burnt out doing the same things every year, like crazy ebbs and flows. So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Um, and the partnership didn't really work out, but what worked out was I fell in love with the cannabis industry, and yeah, been here ever since.
I love it.
Yeah, this was in 2016, 2017.
I think there's a few of us because we started in the industry. So that's the exact same time.
Yeah,
Was the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. Because when I started my agency, I've told you this before, my first client was a cannabis client. So, like, went in, started meeting people. They took me to an industry event, and I was like, I never looked back.
yeah.
Coming from Santa Cruz, I was picturing tie dye and crystals and gross bongs and like all the people I went to high school with. Not that there's anything wrong with the people I went to high school with, but that's who I was picturing. Um,
Right.
and that is not who was there. That
Yeah,
is
I was that
not.
interesting, like art school person who didn't really, I hated weed in
Yeah.
school. Like people were smoking and I did not find it enjoyable. Later found out that it's because Finland gets really shitty weed because it's illegal. It's still very much illegal. So you get like this worst shit from Morocco. Like Southern Europe gets the good stuff, and then we get the worst
Oh,
of the worst,
interesting.
bottom of the barrel, literally. And then a lot of people were mixing it with tobacco just to make it
Oh, yeah.
last longer. So that's probably why I didn't like it, because it was bad stuff. So then, of course, moving to California, you're like, oh, there's all kinds of interesting things here. Look at this. And so I'm one of those ladies. Like I've discovered cannabis in my 30s.
Yeah, I'm the same. I knew it was there because that's what all the kids on the trail did, right? Like
Right.
they didn't go to class. They'd hang out on the trail and smoked. Or in art classes, yes, they would smoke out with the teacher secretly after playing hacky sack.
Right.
Like they assumed the rest of us just didn't, we'd pretend not to notice. Um it's just so interesting how you find it, right? Like I always say I had really bad examples. I had good bad examples because my parents would always hire former drug addicts, and with all the war on drugs, everything was lumped into the same bucket. So I would see,
Mm-hmm.
my cousin's boyfriend in and out of jail. I would see, former addicts that were employees of my parents falling off the wagon, so to speak, and becoming addicted again. And I saw all those really bad examples firsthand, and I never saw moderation. So I was the same way
Yeah.
with alcohol too. Like I just didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything. But it wasn't because I was against it. It was that I never saw anyone do anything in moderation where they could manage, you know, to manage it like I don't want to say like an adult, but manage it without the addiction qualities and aspects
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, same. Like we also had like basically like a dare type program in Finland, and it's still like that. I'm amazed. I'm looking at my like nieces and nephews' health ed books, and it still says smoking weed will cause psychosis, and you will end up in a ditch with a like needle in your arm.
Wow. So are they
So
addressing CBD then too, or is it?
CBD is also currently illegal.
Mm-hmm. And is
They
it in the same kind of just bucket?
Yeah, it's all drugs to them, but we're working on it. So there's a citizens ballot initiative going on
Mm-hmm.
that I'm also kind of working on. Um, got interviewed as a high functioning cannabis user into
Good
the
job.
big local afternoon newspaper.
Ooh, I
With
bet
like
you.
my picture and everything, and like all my relatives were like, "Oh, geez."
Can you use that American spelling of your name?
Right.
You're not one of us.
Right.
Is there
Yeah.
was there a negative backlash from that article?
Not really, except for my mother-in-law, but no, and like I think it was really good because a lot of the activists in Finland, of course, are like your typical stoner enthusiasts. Because like when it's illegal, like the people who are involved are the ones who are like super into it. So, and the rest of us are in the closet. So having somebody like me who's like legally enjoying it and is a perfectly normal, average, closer to middle aged white lady, business owner, high functioning, like that's the face that the story was missing because you get a lot of like the epilepsy, cancer patients. You can get in Finland, you can get it with a prescription
Okay.
for epilepsy, but the government is also threatening the doctors who write those prescriptions to stop it. So they're weird. Um, and then it's like the stoner dudes. So they kind of needed somebody like me.
You're like, oh, here I am. Look at
Here I
me.
am.
Look at me function so well, so highly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting when retrospectively, I look back and I wonder if some of those people that, I felt like were stuck in the same place, same town, same everything, were using cannabis to help some unknown medical cause, right?
Right.
Like, you have to, I wish we knew more then.
Mm-hmm.
That, I wish we knew more now, but I wish we knew more then as well because it's so important and there's so many things that are missing and from healthcare that cannabis can help with that we just don't know, still don't know, except for, you know, the,
Yeah.
the pieces of
And
research that are coming out and the.
and I was definitely a bit of a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did not believe all the stuff that like how can one thing help with so many things? But after learning, like the more you learn, the more like fascinating it is. And it really kind of explains how it can help with like how can one plant help with both your mood and your digestion and your skin and like everything. And also the same plant can also be turned into concrete and fabric and paper and like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the crazy thing how hemp and cannabis can literally like can save the world if we let it.
If we figure it out fast
Yeah.
enough before the world,
Yeah.
while the world's still here.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting, when you start to look at it that way. I went to an in-person business client meeting in Vegas 2 weeks ago, which was a whole other story. But, there were doctors there, surgeons,
Mm-hmm.
pharmacists, and all of these people that are part of this organization. And every single person in that room was there because they wanted to help make a difference. Every single person in that room had a story of themselves or somebody or both, family members, friends, people
Mm-hmm.
that cannabis had helped, that CBD had helped. And so it was just very powerful, especially after a year of not being around people, to
Yeah.
hear, half the people I didn't even know, to hear all of these stories in a room full of people that you just wouldn't have expected. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
look right like they would have those stories.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I love the people that you and me who we work with. Like everybody has that like personal passion
Mm-hmm.
in like a genuine wish to help people through plant medicine, which makes it so much nicer to work with those kinds of people who are actually want to do some good in the world and not just make a quick buck.
It's true, and I think that was part of it, right? Like, I mean, we're all women in this group.
Right.
I was the only woman in the room. There was
Mm.
probably 20 of us. All different races were in the room, but I was the only female. And
Oh,
I
interesting.
think that's part of why the power of all the stories surprised me, because I'm so used to talking with all of you, talking with our friends, talking with women in general, honestly,
Hmm.
who are making such a strong movement to make the world a better place and use the plant to heal and for all of these healing properties, that to be in a room filled with, like I said, about 20 people and have every single person in there have a story that was somewhat similar to any of the ones I've heard,
Yeah.
whether they were Hawaiian, Polynesian, black, white, Mexican, all, like, there was a huge, we just needed more women in that room.
But that's a great sign though that
Mm-hmm.
it's like, because like it or not, like the money and power in this country is still largely held by the dudes in suits. So
Yep.
we need them on board.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors, the medical establishment, politicians, like we do need them on our side so that we can move the needle even further.
Agree. Agree. And it was really, yeah, it was really interesting because, like, it's becoming more far reaching than we imagine very quickly. And so what in your mind, what can we do to help? I mean, it's a bigger question, but in your opinion, what can we do to help better give ourselves that space and take our place?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, you keep hearing like about like how we shouldn't be fighting over that one seat at the table, but we should bring our own damn table. And I think supporting other women and like being kind and supporting and like if you learn something, share it with everybody because we all have the same struggles in this industry, and the dudes have the different kinds of networks than women do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we all focus on networking and helping each other up, I think that will help raise all of us up because it really comes down to like money in the end, like getting into market, getting that market share, and being like financially stable enough to hold on and make it.
I'm making that face because I agree, but it's annoying.
Yeah, it's so annoying, but like we can't let the MSO bro dudes win. We just can't.
Oof, the bro dudes, the funnel douches. Yes,
Yes.
and I know I shouldn't call names. I'm also dropping our link, by the way, into the main cannabis women empowered in cannabis group because I meant to do that
Nice.
earlier before we started. So that's why if you hear typing, talk amongst yourselves right now because that's why. Because I think that this conversation is really important, and I think when we start to look at there's so many different opinions and there's so many different perspectives that I think it's really important. Miss Kindness said it really well last time when she was here, and I've heard her say it several times, is that if you're in a position of power, it's important to turn around and put out a hand to help others.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that I've tried to do throughout my career, and I think that that's something that a lot of us are very aware of and try to do it. Right? Like the next time I go into that meeting, my goal is never to be the only woman in the room.
Right.
I don't want to, honestly. I mean, it was fine,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be that way because it shouldn't. There's lots of room. There were plenty of empty seats there.
Yeah. Right.
But um so if you're watching, Lily and I are chatting. Feel free to drop in any questions or comments that you have for us. We're just chatting, hanging out.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to see. Let me add this to. Sorry, there's a couple things I can't see who made a comment. I've got 4 screens open right now. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got like 8 screens. I don't know why I thought there was
Oy,
only
oy,
4.
oy. But yeah, packaging questions, overall marketing and design questions, I'm sure the two of us can tackle. Um, PR and marketing has been on my brain recently, so that's where my brain is at.
I wonder why.
Mm. Yeah, there's somebody who has a really lovely CBD marketing lab going on called Motivate Your Market.
Aw. Aw, that's why you're here. No, just kidding. Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. There is a lot of important conversations there too with people doing PR, with people um, just needing some of those answers and questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize, you who are watching. I can't see your name, but you said that you agree with what we were saying, so keep it up. um, so I think that, back to people at the table and women, what do you find when it comes to packaging and sustainability? Like, do you see primarily women or men in some of those positions? And what are you
Well,
doing? Go ahead. Let's answer that question first.
yeah, yeah, the packaging industry is like very traditional, like big companies
Mm-hmm.
that are mostly like in the Midwest with like a Bill or a Bob who's going to be answering the phone. And they are also so nice. Like so many times I call them and I say, "Hey, my clients, you guys are too big for my client. Like we can only order 5,000 pieces. I know you guys work in like the 50,000 pieces and up." But they're more than happy to give us advice
Oh,
and like
that's nice.
help give us other people we could call. So that's the nice thing about even the packaging industry. Like they kind of know they want to help the cannabis industry. It doesn't make financial sense for them at most times because like our industry is so fragmented and complicated, and like doing R and like for them to do R&D and develop a new product for us, they would happily do it if somebody was willing to place a million piece order,
Yeah.
because that's the price point where the investment on their side will make sense. And I've seen lots of like, for example, I have he's not even a client, but there's a couple of people who've asked me for reclosable, compostable, child resistant bags. So like
Mm.
with the
Oh,
zipper that you can like
yeah. Yeah.
continuous. And there's compostable plastic and there are compostable bags, but nobody makes one with a compostable zipper.
Mm. So then you can only
So
compost
I've
part of it.
been trying to wheel and deal a company that makes zippers to collaborate with a company that makes child resistant bags, like single use child resistant bags, for them to like work together so that we could order the fully compostable
I love
bags.
that. And that's very, very much you put your peanut butter in my chocolate. You put your chocolate in
Right.
my peanut butter.
Right.
I love that. Help them be better.
So if anybody's interested in that, I'm compiling a list of companies who would be willing to place an order, because in order for them to actually make it, they would need some commitment from
Mm-hmm.
companies. And we can do like a gang run where it's like everybody orders 10,000 bags and together we are whole.
I love that. Meryl was the mystery comments we were getting, and
Mm,
she's asking, "Hi Meryl." She's asking, "Will we see hemp made packaging soon?"
yes, I think like the moment like hemp packaging has been kind of niche.
And very
You guys
expensive.
all know Sauna packaging, and like there's a couple others, and it's been very brown,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't
The packaging itself is brown.
yeah, it's not a very enticing color,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't work for every brand. And it is so hemp plastic itself can be a little fragile, so making stuff out of it, it's not as simple.
Oh, interesting.
So because it is a different kind of resin. So I've seen but the long story short, the hemp resins are getting better, and other compostable plant-based resins are getting better. And with like smaller like 3D printing
Mm-hmm.
capabilities in companies, like we're seeing a lot more stuff happening. And what I'm excited about is like hemp-based paperboard,
Oh,
because if we could, so I'm gonna butcher this statistic, but it's like hemp is 20 times more takes 20 times more carbon out of the atmosphere, than any other crop in the world. So like forests, rainforests,
Seriously?
fields of anything. Yeah. I'm gonna fact check myself later and put it in the comments. But yeah, I think it's like 20 times. So if we grow hemp, it's carbon negative, so it takes more than it
Yeah.
puts out. So if we could replace wood-based cardboard, wood-based paper with
Mm-hmm.
hemp-based paper, that alone would be a huge climate savings.
And that's where companies like Tiny E Paper is trying to do
Yeah.
as well. And I think there's some few others. I know Eric has worked really hard on that. Um, and it's been fun to see her idea go from literally like a napkin to to a
Yeah.
company and production.
Did you see the six pack? Like how it could
Mhm.
hold a beer six pack? Like that's hemp is a strong little fiber.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see how, like, she showed me some of her samples and how they were going through the process, and what it looked like with the different mixtures of how, different parts of the plant they were using and what they were getting.
Hmm.
What do you have there? Is it show and
Stuff.
tell?
It's kind of show and tell. So what I
All
would
right,
love to see more is where's the camera? There.
there.
The doing like pulp, hemp pulp into like rigid boxes. This is just cardboard, but stuff like this could be really interesting. So instead of trying like forcing hemp to become plastic, we could use it more as a like a cardboard and make child resistant things out of that. Or then doing like half cardboard, half something else. There's a cool package from a company called Green. It's basically like a paint can where the outer edge is cardboard and then it has a metal cap that you need to do like an opener.
And it's hemp based?
I think theirs is just cardboard at the moment, but it could be hemp. And they could like that same format. Currently, the top and bottom are metal.
Mm.
So, but you can like take off the cardboard piece and recycle the aluminum pieces separately. Um, but if they could make it all out of hemp, and that would be amazing.
I picture your house having like shelves of sample packaging, that for
Oh,
cannabis and CBD companies, so that way you're like, oh, here, show and tell. Here's this package.
yeah, I have that whole dresser there. The tall boy dresser
Uh
is
huh.
filled with sorry, my messy office. But yeah, that whole dresser is filled with packaging samples. So they're like organized with like cosmetics, that side. So it's like cosmetics bottles are on the bottom drawer. Then I have like compostable plastics in one, all kinds of paper and child resistant packaging in one drawer. it's
Two
it's
types
it's
of
nuts.
drawers. I love that. Yeah, no, but I think it's really interesting because just to be able to talk to clients and to show people, like, here's what it is. Plus, you just
Right,
never know until you touch it, right? Like, you want to be
right.
able to know what packaging is going to look like, what it's going to feel like, because it's such an important part of the experience.
Hmm.
How many clients do you
Yeah,
talk
and
to that
like
forget that?
everybody, and that's the thing that even I sometimes like forget that it's really important to actually have the physical thing to hold because sometimes, especially if your brain is used to the metric system, you might be thinking that something is much larger or smaller than it is. And then, like for example, one project that I was working on, we were ordering these flower jars, and only then, like once we got the actual sample, we realized, like, yeah, that like eighth looks really puny in a jar this big.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't do a jar this big because it feels so wasteful. So what we ended up doing instead was little compostable baggies, and then selling the fancy custom printed glass jar. It was actually a really pretty company. They do the ocean plastic lids and recycled glass, and then
Oh.
custom prints the glass. So it's really
Oh.
pretty. So this company, they did like keepsake kind of collectible, reusable glass jars,
Uh huh.
kind of a fancy stash jar for your house, and then a refill in the little
Oh,
pouches.
that's really smart.
Yeah, because
There's a
like it's dumb to sell like the fancy like pre-roll box every time because
no,
those
yeah.
things can cost like $2 each. So would your customer rather pay $2 less for the refill or pay the $2 every time and feel guilty for
Yeah.
throwing? Like I think a lot of us, you know, those wild gummies boxes. They're so pretty. I always
Mm-hmm.
feel bad, even if it's just cardboard. Like I feel bad throwing them away, and then I have a full drawer of like edibles containers that I don't want to throw away because I'll use them for something. And
There was a
yeah.
really funny series going on at TikTok recently that was like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you can throw away the box your iPhone came in. And I feel that way about a lot of containers. Like, but it's
Hmm.
true. It's the waste. I don't want to throw it away if it's going to be wasteful. One of the things before we go into the question, Meryl had a very important question. She's asking if your hair is dark now, or is it the lighting?
It's both.
And B, she's asking, back on topic, what challenges do you see in design and messaging over the next 12 months? It's a really good question.
Oh, that's a great question. One of the things that's been on my mind is like with the limited real estate that we have, with all the warnings and everything that needs to go on there, how do you then also communicate kind of your branding story on the package itself? And or how can we make the once we can go back into the stores and look at stuff in person, how to make that experience kind of tell the story a bit more? Like, can we do beautiful displays in the store? Can we have like QR codes that lead to a landing page that tells you about the farm that the cannabis grew on? And how do we tell the sustainability story? Because like if you have two pre-rolls, one costs $2 more because it's in the hemp tube instead of the cheapy plastic tube. How do you explain that? Because customers are, I think it's like 80% of consumers say that they are willing to pay more for a
Mm-hmm.
sustainable option. But if they don't know that this is a sustainable option, how will they then make the choice? So that's kind of what's been on my mind. It's how to communicate that to people, like making your values part of your value proposition.
And that's actually was part of the question I want to get back to. Meryl is full of awesome questions today. Thank you, Meryl. She's asking if you have any examples of brands that are doing this now.
Well, as an example, this is just, of course, me working on Green Bee Botanicals cannabis skincare company. We are doing a hemp line. And as part of that, we're like rethinking our packaging because, like, in 2018 for California cannabis, we just kind of did what we could do in order to get to the market. But now, with like the next batches, we're rethinking of like our carbon footprint and striving to be plastic free. And I'm happy to say that it's very much looking like our hemp line will be 100% plastic free, box, caps, everything. Like I'm literally calling factories in Italy to try to convince them to sell me a small quantity of these aluminum caps that are plastic free and could be recycled because
I
I love
love
them.
that. Is that what happens when you have a complete expert working on your stuff? You're like,
It
I will make
happens
this happen.
when I get an idea that I don't want to give up, and I will keep at it until I find a solution.
It's really
Um,
sorry.
and yeah, other examples like sometimes like the sustainable option is actually like not, it doesn't feel like the most sexy option, but like instead of doing a glass jar, doing a bag or a cardboard box is actually hugely less carbon intensive. So even though like a glass jar might kind of feel eco, quote unquote, the plastic baggie currently, just thinking about the carbon footprint alone, is actually the greener option.
Especially for CBD products that you can, like
Yeah.
hemp CBD products that can be shipped, right?
Right.
That's where glass isn't going to be as effective. It's always interesting to me to see, and I know you run across this too, to see brands that put all their attention on their message, their story, their brand, and then forget about those pieces when it comes to packaging.
Yeah, and like do really sad plastic dupe tube with a sad looking sticker that's not
Yes.
even the right size. And then like you spend so much money on like you have a freaking billboard, but then your packaging looks like
Yeah, like I always think back, like there's nothing better than getting Apple's products. Or
right.
even, and I know I talk about Tiffany's a lot, but the Tiffany blue box, right? There is a point and an experience and an intention with that packaging. Whether it's sustainable
Mhm.
or not, it's the experience with the packaging. And when you get that and open up, you're still continuing on that experience.
Right. Yeah, and like unboxing. Like I love the unboxing experience of like Lucky Box Club because their delivery box is like a hexagonal. So it feels like a high-end thing that you're getting instead of like your normal like food delivery. Like a lot of like cannabis delivery kind of feels kind of mundane, where it could be a much more kind of more engaging unboxing thing that you would want to um, like do an unboxing video of just because it's so awesome.
When I was at the last agency I worked at, one of our clients was Bumblebee Tuna. And
Mm.
one of the biggest things was trying to connect the story because they had a sustainable fish line. And one of the challenges was trying to connect the story of why is it slightly cost more? How do you know it's sustainable? What does that look like? And so they did kind of a thing on top of the tuna fish can, right? Picture the tuna fish can. There was a circle cut out basically on top of it that was fold out, and it had the QR code
Hmm.
and it had the story. But on the QR code, you could take a picture of it, and we had created a landing page that you enter the code on the can,
Uh-huh.
and it would literally tell you the name of the boat, where the fish came from, how it was caught, and then it would go down and tell you the facility that processed it, that cleaned it, the place where it was canned, all the way down to the shelf it got to. So it's information that these companies had already, but we took it and turned it
Hmm.
into this like it was a beautiful page. Everything was animated, and the fish were moving, and
Wow.
the family, the fishermen were there, the family processing it. But it was just beautiful, and from a sustainability standpoint, it was really impressive because it really helped bring that story home. And
Yeah,
I,
and like on the cannabis side, like bringing that, like if you're grown in a beautiful place by like a small, like mom and pop style farm, like making that part of your story. Um, one of my clients is a non-cannabis coffee farm in Hawaii, and that's like literally part of the whole story. Like we're not the corporate coffee
mhm.
from that island, so it's a farm stay, family run. They have chickens running around. Like we were making that part of the whole branding idea is like kind of we're kind of homey.
I love that. I love that so much, and it just brings it back. But it brings that like personal, intentional side to the consumer as well.
Right.
I don't know how people felt when they got their can of fish and looked up the codes. I know people did. I know what the traffic looked like on the back end. I don't know how they felt
Hmm.
about it, but I know how proud I was of that project that my team put together, as well as just every time I showed it to people, just how impressed they were by it. And it's not terribly hard, right? We're tracking all this information anyway.
Right.
So it's once again taking that data and displaying it. And it doesn't even have to be real time. It could be here is our farm, here is our farmer, here is the plants. Here is a plant that looked like the one that could be yours.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the exact one, of course. Like it can be, and like having faces of people who actually are behind it will humanize it. You know, like those in some like eggs and milk, you have like the farmer story, or like in some cereal, you have like the picture of the farmer who's like, this is from the Matthews family farm in
It's the
I know.
Portlandia where they go to visit the
Yeah.
chicken.
Right. But like that's it. It sounds a little hokey, but like that really is kind of what separates a lot of our products from like the warehouse grown big money cannabis.
And I think that's something that's really important, especially women in CBD. There are so
Hmm.
many websites that I go to, and if I don't see pictures of the people in at the, and I don't see their story anywhere, I'm not even
Hmm.
going to bother looking at the products, because there's less, I feel like there's less quite now, but there's so many white label products and people who are just trying to make
Hmm.
money that I'm personally not willing to spend my money with one of those. I'm going to look at the website. I'm going to see who the people are and hear their story, because that's a really important part of the buying process for me. Can I trust your products? Do you trust me
Right.
enough to share who you are with me?
Yeah, I hate the ones where there's not even like any kind of name. It's just the contact us form or info at blah blah blah.
Or our
And like,
team really cares about our products we create with no
yeah,
names. It's all generic. You can pick it up and copy it from anybody. Came with the template of the website.
right. And not that there's like anything wrong with like white labeling. Like
No, no, for
it's
sure.
still your like you're doing the like you're putting your face on it to prove that you're an actual human who will respond to customers if they have a problem, and that you have done like you can talk about how you chose your white label vendor and what kind of facility they have and like who your partners are, and make it almost like a thing.
I think white labeling is a very important part of the industry. Thank you for commenting on that. I think that for me, when I look at it, if you don't trust your, if you're not willing to put your name on your company, why should I trust your product?
Right.
So why, there's a lot of industries that are a lot easier to be in than cannabis and CBD. So if you're not, like, why are you still trying to take these risks and work this hard to do something, even with white labeling? I don't actually care if you're an MLM, a white labeling, if you're building your own, whatever it is, you still need to be able to tell me why you're doing it.
Hmm. And
Um,
like not every brand has to be like super founder driven where like
no,
it's your boss babe picture and on every page, but I think there should be at least one page where you talk about why you're in this and why it matters to you, and
I'll take
have a
a
little
picture
picture
of
of
your
yourself.
kid or your inspiration or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you want to put pictures of your kids on the page, but like, I think there's more to it. And if you're not willing to put your name on there and tell us who you are and why you created it, why are you working this hard to do it, and how is it going to stand
Right.
out? 'Cause,
Agreed.
um, yeah, that's definitely a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, can we talk about this for another hour?
Yeah, and especially like that like personal story that probably brought you here
Mm-hmm.
is gonna help sell product. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you got into it, I'm like thinking about Crooked Cactus CBD.
Yep.
Like the whole reason why she got into it was her special needs kid,
Mm-hmm.
and like put like that makes it feel much more interesting than like the generic other brand.
I
So
actually just ordered, and it arrived today. I ordered some
nice.
Delta 8 from Taya over at Crooked Cactus today, because I know I can trust her products. I know that
Hmm.
she puts the same care into her products that she does, because she makes them for her kids.
Right.
Originally, probably not the Delta 8, but I'm taking that and assuming that what the care she takes with her CBD products that she works with kids with, she's putting into the Delta 8.
Right.
And I know that, therefore, I had lots of options to try Delta 8, but that was the one I chose to do because I know I can trust her. And she knows I'll talk about her. I can't wait to try it. Meryl's saying that we're big fans of Delta 8. Yeah, I tried some recently when I was in Vegas at that client conference, but I was using a vape. And so they had gummies, but I don't eat gummies that I don't know what's in them because I have so many food
Mm.
allergies. That mysterious gummy sitting around. But
Right.
even if I know who made them, I don't know what's in them, I will not eat them. Um, so I just ordered some and they arrived today. And I was warned not to try them before doing a podcast. she said very specifically. So even though it's only the Friday one, I still have to do a workout, and I didn't want to be on the rowing machine just in case they were stronger than I thought they were.
Although that would be such a great, we should do a rowing while high, virtual reality, like rowing on some like beautiful lake somewhere in your rowing machine while high. That would be amazing.
Just pack it in my car and start taking it places with me. Because right now it's tucked in my little condo behind my couch.
Yeah.
It's not,
Mine is in the basement,
it's
so.
not that same. Sometimes my dog will sit on the back of the couch and just stare at me while I'm doing it. It's great.
Aw.
But yeah, I'm really excited to try the Delta 8. There's actually been a lot of articles this week and last week about it. Have you heard much about it?
Yeah, and it's such an interesting like loophole right now.
It's such an interesting loophole. How long do you think it's going to take before they like close that?
It's not going to take long.
They're like, wait, it can get you high and there's no limitations around it? Done.
Yeah.
Close Pandora's box.
But we'll enjoy it while it lasts.
It's true. It was shipped across state lines earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I think that, once again, the packaging around it, as well as with everything else, like for me, my frustration with Delta 8 is on the consumer side. There's so many things to try and educate people on. THC, CBD, CBN, all the other, CBG, all of the stuff. And then it's important that our packaging is sustainable because we have values. And it's important that you can trust our products. And by the way, here's this new thing.
Right.
That's over here, but it does what's over here, but it's also going to do...
Yeah, there's still people who have no idea what CBD is.
Mm-hmm. And if it's going to get them high.
Here we are, like, we're running after the shiny object because that's the new exciting thing. And kind of almost moving on from THC and CBD. That being said, I'm super excited about CBG.
Yeah.
It's apparently great for your skin.
Oh, really? Will it help over here?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so interesting. But yeah, we forget how far behind people are. There was a survey, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, last year about how people who were frequent smokers of cannabis didn't know what the endocannabinoid system were, and they weren't familiar with terpenes.
Right.
Like they were regular smokers who consumed every day, or regular consumers. Sometimes
also like we're too deep in like explaining kind of the features instead of explaining the why. Like instead of we're talking about the terpenes and CBG and CBD and all these like acronyms and technical things, when what we should be talking about is like, are you stressed out? This might help.
I have a lot of friends in San Diego, just by the nature of living here, who are in the military. And then when they start talking to each other, I'm still like, there'll be 4 conversations on, and I'm still trying to translate the time into military time in my head.
Right.
Like, did they say 4 o'clock? Is that, and there's so many acronyms and there's so many things that I have to like pretend I'm your daughter who's 5. Like, let's talk. Then I feel like we do that to our customers as well a lot of the times because we forget what we don't know.
Yeah, I always like think about my mom and like, would my mom understand this? If I told her this sentence, would she understand? Would it be appealing to her? If that's like who your target audience is, like, and even like within like, I have several friends who don't know anything about cannabis, like literally like will be confused about how topicals won't get you high, but eating it will, like how, like they don't understand the mechanics of it. And like they've lived in the US their whole lives, and cannabis has been legal in California since the 90s, and yet they're still like don't understand the basic mechanics. So I think we always need to remember to take several steps back.
So can I tell you, so totally random story about my mom, who's an awesome woman, but she's from Modesto, Central California, like farm country, right? It's where she grew up. It's where her family's from. I was working on a branding presentation for a big group of people that I was going to be giving it to. And she happened to call while I was working on it, and I was wrapping it up and trying to finish. And I said, oh, I'm working on this branding presentation to like explain branding, what it is, blah, 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 blah. And my mom, God bless her, paused and said, do you mean like for cows?
Wow.
I've been in marketing for my entire career.
Right.
Like, do you suddenly think I'm giving presentations on branding cows?
Right. But
So,
that's
yeah.
the thing. Like every time my mom tells other people what I do, she says that I'm in advertising because that's something that her brain, like that's what she understands, is like kind of Mad Men style advertising agency.
Yeah, same. And I think it's really interesting when you start to look at, sorry, I've said I think it's really interesting like 500 times. Like when I go back to visit my parents and back when we could go places together, we'd run into their friends, and my brother's a pilot. So they automatically like, oh, are you the pilot? I'm like, no. And then my sister's a physical therapist. I'm like, oh, are you, my shoulder kind of, is that you? I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, what do you do? I'm like, I market cannabis. And it's just like, they shut down and walk away. Like, no one knows what to do with it. And I think that it's that same thing of they don't know what to relate it to. There's nothing that that's close enough that they can understand. So we need to remember when we're talking about what we do in our products and services that we find those hooks that they can relate to. Like, yeah, cannabis is not the same, marketing cannabis is not the same as being a pilot, but it still can get you high. But-um-bum.
But-um-bum.
And that's the Ask Me Anything Friday.
But yeah, that is like, and like explaining what your product does in a kind of how will this make your life better kind of way without making medical claims.
Right.
I think that's really the gist of it, and just keeping working on it and figuring out like your core message of like how can I explain it in like one sentence without getting into too many like weird acronyms. And like, because like at one point, like the skincare company, we were explaining it as like cannabis skincare because you have an endocannabinoid system and you have these receptors in your skin, and there's cannabinoids and THC and CBD, and they go into those receptors, and then they I even forget the word, like there's a fancy cannabis word for balance.
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis, like bring about homeostasis. And then like we had a person look at the website and they was like, I don't understand what any of these words mean. Like, what do you do?
I had a client that wanted to put homeostasis on their tagline. I was like, no one will know what that means. They're like, but they'll look it up. I'm like, that's not how people work.
No. So currently we're saying something along the lines of like cannabis skincare that balances, brings balance to healthy skin or something like that.
Yeah,
or
which is a
makes your skin healthy.
Much better way to do it, for sure. Lilli, I want to wrap up because I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I want to thank you for being here. If you are interested in learning more about sustainability, sustainable packaging for CBD and cannabis brands, or awesome designs, amazing designs for your products and brands, be sure and check out Lilli over at Changemaker Creative. She's really active in the CBD group. You can tag her and find her in the comments, but she just is very generous with her information. Do you have a giveaway? I should have asked you this before.
Well, not this
a resource?
Second. Yeah, okay. I'm working on like a webinar about like understanding how to pick sustainable things for your packaging, but that's not done yet. Okay. But I'm always happy to hop on a quick call with anybody. 15 minutes. First 15 minutes is always free.
Always.
And I'm always like, if somebody needs just a single, like, quick little thing of like, hey, does anybody know where to get ocean plastic dupe tubes? I will tell them where to find them. Like, I'm not one of those consultants who will always have
No.
to charge like a $500 hour in order to tell you that one thing.
Check out her website, see what she's been doing. She's has a very powerful presentation that she gives on sustainable packaging and the importance of it for our industry and the impact it can have. So if you don't have sustainable packaging, but you have values that align with making sure that the world's a better place, you want to check it out. It's worth your time to go see and learn what you can. Thank you, Lilli, for being here. Thank you,
Thanks
Meryl,
for
and
having
everyone
me.
else who's been watching. We really appreciate you. Have a great Friday, rest of your Friday, and a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next week with Talking with Trailblazers interview. All right. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You too.